So I just finished doing my work on Daniel 6, and honestly, it's pretty cool. Honestly, I haven't read this story since I was a kid. I was raised in a nominal household, so yippee. But anyways, we have Darius replacement with Belshazzar. He's the one. Belshazzar was the prideful king who wouldn't really, you know, respect Daniel, I think, from what I remember. What did I say again? Hold on, let me just look real quick. Yeah, he was having a grand feast. He overstepped him. He overstepped into God's temple. Yeah, that's what he did. So, we got that. And basically, we can establish that he replaced Belshazzar and established 120 different provinces. And one thing that I do know is that you can't really do that on your own. Even, I forgot what his name was, but Moses' father-in-law said, "Hey, Moses, you can't do this alone. You're in Israel. You're trying to do it all by yourself." And then that's why we have the hierarchical system over in Israel, and Israel over there back then. But sorry. Then one thing that I understood is that, just because, there were 120 different provinces, established at the kingdom. And just because someone new takes over, it doesn't mean that we will always, like them better, that we will always be better off. And you'll see what I mean here in a minute. I'm not saying that King Darius was necessarily a bad king. I'm just saying that he was flawed. And I think it's just a part of being human. So I want to establish that there are 3 high officials, and one of them happened to be Daniel, and then we'll have the other official here. And I imagine that they were in charge of a group of like 40 princes, I believe. And yeah, that's why I have 40p. They're in charge of those certain groups. And the reason I say princes is because, like, I forgot, I'm going to butcher this, but the Aramaic word for satraps that's used in the ESV, actually the elect standard version that I use, is the Achasharpen, and the Aramaic word for that is like, and that means like rulers or princes over certain areas. So they were subject to Daniel and to 2 other officials, from what I can see. And the thing is, Daniel did a lot better than these 2 other officials. There's a reason I put Daniel higher than the others, is because he did better. And the text also says he was led by the Spirit. And one thing that I know is, like, whenever the Spirit of God is leading us, it distinguishes us from the rest of the world, because greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. And even when Paul writes to us, he calls us the saints, tohagios, ones consecrated by God, ones set apart. So we got that over there. But the only problem is that people started to coerce. So everybody else is also coercing against Daniel. And that's the only thing. Because Daniel was doing so well, and they decided, hey, let's go and butter up the king. They were like, hey, let's go and butter up the King Darius. And, they had themselves, like, little, they were like saying, hey, Darius, we should all pay petitions over to you. And the reason why they said that is because they were trying to get Daniel to compromise on his moral law. See, one thing that I love about Daniel is that he really does talk about how to be, faithful in a tough political and economic state. Because the one thing that I see Daniel do, yes, he does submit to the governing authorities. He does listen to King Darius, but he never compromises. That's one of the rules I see. I think that we can understand, what not to compromise on by reading the word, and also, you know, just looking through history, looking at what the church fathers also have historically believed, and, you know, like, but most of all, through reading the word, because that's how we're going to be able to do it. And especially like when, you know, I actually wrote a paper on this whenever it talks about some things being permissible not because of conscious experiences yet. Actually, wait. Let me reword this. Okay. Sometimes I hear people say that it is permissible to take a life because of a lack of conscious experience. I don't think that's okay. I don't think that's true whatsoever. But that's a different subject for a different time. But basically, they butted up the king, said, "Hey, people should only petition to you." And there we go. There's my first church father quote for people. And like Saint Jerome, you know, he says, "They do not mention Daniel's name, so that when the king has made a general answer as to the order he gave them, he may then be bound to his word, and not deal with Daniel in any other fashion than he stated." So, if there is a word that he makes, it's absolute. Everybody has to follow it, with him being the king over whatever it was. And, you know, excuse my chicken, like my chicken scratch hand, right? But any declaration that King Darius has to make, well, any declaration he makes, he has to make it completely. Now, here is where 1 Thessalonians 5:21-22 comes into play. 1 Thessalonians says 5:21-22 says to not only, it says to test all things to make sure they are good and not to be deceived by evil. I'm summarizing it. I'm not doing a quote, like a quote for quote, but I hope you can understand the premise. Given King Darius were to have tested what they were saying, and possibly to like what is good, which Daniel was somebody who was doing good to what was good, then basically he wouldn't have been in a situation where he would have had to be bound to his word in order to in order to like, how do I say, to even put him in the lion's den to begin with. Because we can also see later in the passage that he was extremely distressed because he wanted to make Daniel rule, like he wanted to put Daniel above the others, despite him being a Hebrew. I also think that there's also like a little bit of a race polemics. I hope I'm using that word right. I think there's also race polemics that are also in here, but I don't really remember. Just so you know, this is all going to be like first take raw footage, so you know, just chilling. But yeah, if he had tested them, it would have been okay. But here's the thing, he didn't, and now Darius has gotten himself in a sticky situation with his best man Daniel being put out. Now, this is also, I could also totally be wrong. I don't know. This is my first time ever doing an exegesis video, but yeah, we're just chilling. But one thing that we can, but then like we see that, like I said, we see he's distressed, and after Daniel wouldn't compromise, but he wishes that Daniel's God would also deliver him. So when he said like, "Hey, may your God deliver you," I think that was somewhat of respect, but even like seeing the things that happen afterwards, how do you not believe in them? Well, I think that what's it called? When things happen in our life, we attribute them not to God, but also, okay. When it comes to some unbelievers, it's not all. I think that we'll always give another reason for why they happened. You know, Darius could have easily thought, "Oh yeah, he was lucky." Could have easily thought he was, you know, they wouldn't see it as more so divine intervention. But also, we need to think about what it would have meant for him to conform to a smaller minor religion while being a head over like a bunch of provinces, while being a major king over in the Babylonian Empire or Persian Empire, one of those two, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's Persian. But for him to conform to that would cause a major political unrest over there. So that's one of the reasons I also think that he did not conform to that. And also, even in the, and then like we see them, we see, Darius put Daniel in the lion's den, close the tomb. And the thing is, by faith, God delivered him. And we know this, but because of Hebrews 11:33, that by faith these things happened and you delivered them from the mouths of lions. He was in a lion's den. What else would he be delivered from? The claws or paws? Okay, that isn't even as distinctive. But then we have then I decided to write as my application. Faith is a crucial part of our walk. But when we face the mouths of our lions, we must have faith in God. And here's my main thing. What are the mouths of our lions today? What do they mean today? I always think about it. Where do we think we see ourselves heading over to a lion's den? Is it school? Is it school? Is it possibly? Is it, what's it called, work? It could very well be. Where are we always going to see ourselves? Like almost reaching the mouths of lions all the time. Maybe it's those people who say you only believe what you believe because you were told to growing up. At that point, I would honestly ask you to look at your faith. So you see it. Be a Christian out of conviction rather than convenience. Always be prepared to give a defense for what you have. Always for that hope that is in you. But whenever it comes to the mouths of lions, I know that God will deliver you. He delivered me a couple times. So I know he'll deliver you. And we eventually see like Daniel, he goes out and then there's a prayer at the end where God is ultimately glorified. And we always see God's sovereignty play out in this. He's had a plan to always to deliver his people. And first, and he even had a plan since the beginning, since the fall. In Genesis 3:15, he says, I'll create enmity between you, the woman, and the serpent, and you'll bite his heel, or I forgot what that passage was, but it's Genesis 3:15. The first messianic prophecy about the Messiah who will come to save us is fulfilled through Christ. And John 14:6 even says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one goes to the Father except through me. And, we can see how God is glorified through all these things that occur and happen. That's about it. If I said anything heretical, please leave it in the comments. But, yeah.